You mentioned it a little bit, but why don't you tell us how you actually first got started? Like, what was the first thing as a filmmaker that you did? I'm assuming you maybe made home movies or your own little sketches and videos, but how did you get started as a kid?
Camcorder epics in the backyard. Fake commercials and just goofing around and let's see. I mean, it's really kind of the start that everyone has. And I knew, as my friends and I were trying to make longer form, more substantial stuff, which now I like laugh out loud thinking of what we thought was going to be, the big time. But I really fell in love with the process of everything in prep and just the planning and designing and all aspects of filmmaking. But what was funny is I actually started more grooving towards special effects. That's what got me really attuned to movies, was through special effects. And for a couple of years, that's what I thought was the career I was going to go into. I turned out to really be good at mold making and not much else in that. But I also, I would do stuff like paint bruises and scars on people to get out of gym class in school. And but I knew that I was good at bruises, painting fake ones. But
wow.
But I knew that by the time college rolled around, that it was going to just pivot towards filmmaking, and I thought it would only be towards directing. But the interest in, love for, and work of editing managed to sort of get neck and neck and stay as far more important than I thought it would be.
So you in high school, like your buddies, you would paint bruises like they got in a fight, so then they'd go to the teacher and be like, I got to go home, or I got to go to the hospital.
Like leg bruises and stuff, and they were probably not like in a place that you would get that kind of bruise, if you got hit. But I do remember doing several on people to get them out of classes and stuff. Thankfully, they didn't smudge them as they were walking away to go outside and play the rest of the day. But
that's brilliant. And was this a commercial endeavor? Were you charging for these services back
then? No,
it
was just like I was learning it and getting a kick out of messing around, and so I would have like the kit at school sometimes. And
did teachers know that you were the one that was doing it by the end, or did they know?
There weren't like 70 kids getting out of gym because they all looked like a knee injury, but that sticks in my mind because it was the one sort of makeup effects thing that I got really good at. And when I was in New York City for film school, I worked on a vampire theater troupe, and I was the effects assistant. So I would like be mixing blood in my bathtub like it was some sort of like dime store gin or something like that, and bringing it to set and making little tubing things. I was a better effects assistant than I was an effects guy, but by then I knew I was just going to pivot entirely towards film and movie making. And I still like effects, but it's funny because now I get why they want to do them all digitally, just to save time, because it's so easy for something to break and go wrong and need hours and hours and hours to reset. And
I love the visual of you in a bathtub full of blood and be like, don't go in the bathroom, nothing to see there, to your landlords and your roommates.
It would just be entirely dyed red, just like
you're like mixing it.
Yeah.
Doing a little chant while you do it.
I couldn't afford. Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, why didn't I have a big spoon? But I would think it was the particular colors in it. They blended better if you really, really like did this with the syrup, the corn syrup that you'd be mixing stuff in. You couldn't just like say, throw it in a blender and make the stuff the right way.
Sure. That's the reason. The real reason is you're just a freak and you wanted to get your hands all bloody and you were smiling all over your face. Like,
thankfully,
Lord of the Flies style, one of my favorite things about meeting people in film and TV and hearing their origin stories is dating ourselves with the tech. Because when I was in school, I remember shooting on a big handy cam with VHS, and then we would edit from 2 VCRs. We'd buy a blank VHS and we were cutting and snipping with like the most basic stuff, and there was like snow on the screen still. What tech were you using? What's the earliest tech you used as a filmmaker?
It would probably be the VHS, and then like those mini DV tapes. I remember nothing earlier than that. I remember seeing a Super 8 camera at a flea market and getting it, thinking like, oh, I'm gonna go so old school, and it didn't work, and I had no way to get that kind of film. It's funny that now you can actually it's easy to get. It feels like there's been such like an old school renaissance of that kind of stuff, and you can get like more professional Super 8 cameras. But yeah, no, I would probably be close to where you are in terms of like just VHS and not even editing between two VCRs. I remember just trying to shoot it in order and just time it just right, turning the camera on and off.
Right.
It wasn't until film school, that I got to actually really like edit with any sort of anything. And, you know, film editing was phasing out, but I remember getting a hold of older machines just because it was so like cool to see those people like cutting and taping and splicing like it was like more like woodworking instead of like just pushing buttons on a computer. So I got to try it, but you know, I never really got to spend a lot of film edit time. But what was cool is I did use a lot of like these big video decks. It wasn't VHS, it was like 3/4 video, which was like slightly higher quality, and you could have like 2 tracks of audio, I think 1 track of video, and you still had to cut it in order, but you could like erase 1 shot. Like if you screwed up shot 6, you could redo it, but you couldn't go back and redo shot 1. So the fact that you had so few choices did bring a lot of interesting discipline, and you really had to think about the timing because you couldn't just throw it in and then adjust. It was like get it right or leave it half-assed or start over. So when it got to the point of actually having like my own like post thing, you know, with like Final Cut Pro and like an old Mac G4 or something in my home, I was almost paralyzed at first because I was like, I have infinite choices. Like it did, you know, it was weird. Now you get why someone could spend, you know, 11 years on like a short form thing, because you don't have to ever stop, you know, you just have to kind of walk away from it. But so it took a while to not be freaked in a way by the possibilities being endless. But I will say that initial discipline did help me because I did become much more decisive and can cut fast and won't spend all day trying to figure out one shot and try it 12 different ways. I think, but you just get better at year after year at your craft at seeing what works and what you need and what's not serving the scene and why this should be there and why this shouldn't, so you can explain to other people. And you know, you just get better at hitting that ball.